Hello, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the van. Today, what I want to do is give you my top five tips on traveling or camping in the winter in your van. Now, believe it or not, this is my first winter of owning a camper van, and I'm planning on traveling as much as I can throughout the winter. So these are little tips I've picked up along the way that I think are useful tips that make traveling in the winter easier, and some things that I think are necessary to do, and some things that I think are a good thing to have with you. Following advice from more experienced campers than I am, and people who've gone through winter before in a camper van, I've drained the water system. If there's water in your van and the temperature drops to a point where the water's going to freeze, that's going to cause damage to your van, or may cause damage to your van. It can cause damage to the pipes, it can cause damage to the boiler, and the key thing to remember here is frost damage or any damage that's caused by water freezing in the system won't be covered by your warranty. So if it damages your boiler, you might find that's a very expensive thing to replace or repair, and it won't be covered under the warranty. So my number one tip is to, when the temperature's starting to drop, if you're going to be camping in the winter, get that water system drained. Make sure there's no water in the system that can freeze and cause any damage. It makes me think, how do people in these countries like Norway, Sweden, Finland, that kind of place, that have pretty harsh winters, how do they cope with camping in the winter? What do they do? I wonder. My advice and my top tip, number one, would be make sure that your van is drained of all water before the cold weather hits. Now, as I've said, I still want to travel in my camper van in the winter, which leads me to top tip number two. If I've drained all the water out of my system, I still want to be able to use water to boil the kettle or give the dogs a drink of water, or indeed flush my toilet. This is where you're going to want to carry a fresh water container or some bottled water, and carry fresh water in the van with you. Don't put it into the system so that your pipes can freeze, but carry it inside the van so that the temperature inside the van is going to be a bit warmer. It's not going to be an external water tank. It's not going to freeze. And if the temperature does drop enough to freeze the water inside the van, then I would suggest it's time to go home. Make sure you carry some kind of fresh water without putting it into the system where it may freeze and cause damage. So that would be top tip number two, carry some bottled water. Now, I think if it's cold enough to freeze the water in your water tank and the water in your water pipes, then it's cold enough to freeze me. So that leads me to top tip number three. Top tip number three, apart from carrying bottled water in your camper van, there's another thing that you're going to need if you are camping in the winter, and that is some form of heating. So my top tip number three is carry an emergency heater in the van with you. Now, it's better to have one and never need to use it than need one and not have one. Is that the saying? Something like that. But you're better off with one than without one, is the point. Now, my CV40 van has a whale blown air heating system that can run on gas, electric, or a combination of both. So you might think that that's all I would ever need. However, the whale heating system in my van can be temperamental at times. And on more than one occasion, I've tried to put the heating on only to be greeted by a red exclamation mark up there on the control panel, and the heating won't fire up, won't start, won't spring into life, so there's no heating in the van. Now, I've been lucky enough to reset my control panel, or reset the boiler, or reset whatever I'm resetting. I've managed to reset it, and I've been lucky enough to do that, and the heating fires up eventually. But sometimes that takes longer than others. Sometimes it'll reset itself after the first attempt. Sometimes it takes 20 attempts, and in the end I give up and walk away and come back half an hour later and try it again and get it working. So it can be temperamental, this whale heating system, at times. Now, if you're out in the winter and you're freezing cold, and you're fiddling on with the heater because it needs resetting and you can't get it going and you might have to wait half an hour, you could be freezing. Now, if you're on a campsite and you're on electric hookup, you may as well have a little heater that you can put in the van and warm the van up while you're resetting this heater, or while you're waiting for the blown air heating to warm the van up, you can use a little heater to put in a specific area to warm up a specific area of the van. Or if you return to the van on a cold day and you may have been caught out in the rain, you can plug an external heater in if you're on electric hookup and help to dry your clothes out. and help you get warm quicker than you would while you're waiting for the wheel heating system. Now the heating system in the van is great when it's working properly, but it's nice to have a fail-safe, some kind of backup system, just in case you find yourself without heating. I've seen many posts on forums saying, oh, I'm on a campsite, it's freezing cold, my heating system's not working, how do I reset it? I've tried resetting it numerous times, it's not working. Well, I'm sure people will get these heating systems working eventually by resetting them, but in the meantime, it's nice to have some kind of heating backup system just there in case you need it. Now, the heater I carry is a 2000 watt ceramic heater. Apparently a ceramic heater is better than the old school fan heater because the ceramic plates heat up quicker and they transfer the heat quicker. So it gets everything warmer quicker. And who doesn't want that? And as I said, a heater like this can be used to get into specific areas of the van that you want warming up quickly. Maybe you're sitting in your dining area and you want some warmth into this area, or maybe you're drying your clothes somewhere and you want heat into that area. With one of these little ceramic heaters, you can move it around and have heat where you need it, when you need it. Now, I bought my heater off Amazon and I'll put a link in the description down below, so you can go and check that out if you want to. So if you're going to be camping in the winter or throughout the winter and in the cold weather, I think an emergency heater is something that you should definitely consider. Or you could just sit in the cold. It's up to you. Now, that leads me to top tip number 4. Top tip number 4 would be this. The rechargeable LED torch. Now I've got 2 of these because they came as a pair. I bought them off Amazon. They come as a pair. I think they're $15.99 for 2, which I think was quite reasonable considering that it's an LED torch with rechargeable batteries. It comes with everything you need. Like I say, it came as a pair for $15.99, so you get a pair of torches. So if you're traveling with somebody else, you can have one each. Now, these are great for taking out when you're walking in the dark with the dogs, but they're also good for having in the van. And if you've got it in the van, keep it somewhere handy where you can put your hand on it in the dark. And please, no jokes about putting your hand on it in the dark. I'm talking about the torch, okay? So I keep it handy near the door. It's very handy to have with you. You can clip it on your belt when you're taking the dogs out for a walk, or you can clip it on the back of the seat here. Mine's clipped on the back of the passenger seat, so that if I need to let the dogs out in the middle of the night when it's dark, I can open the side sliding door and put my hand on my torch straight away in the dark. Yeah. So what I recommend, tip number 4 would be get yourself a torch that you can put your hand on in the dark. As with the heater, I'll leave a link in the description below of where you can get yourself a pair of these torches. Now, that leads me to tip number 5. And I think tip number 5 is probably the most important tip of all. Tip number 5 would be, get out there and enjoy your van and enjoy your travels. You're only here once, so make the most of it while you can. Now, I didn't travel much in 2021, but in 2022, I'm going to make the most of my van. I'm going to travel whenever I can, whether it's wind, rain or shine. I'm going to be traveling, okay? So these top tips are going to come in handy for you if you are traveling during the winter. So as I said, top tip number 5, get out there and enjoy your van. You paid a lot of money for it. You're only here once, so get out there and enjoy it. Thanks for taking the time to join me today. I hope you've enjoyed this video and found the information useful. Now, I'm not trying to teach anyone how to suck eggs here. I know there's a lot more experienced people out there than me when it comes to travelling in a van. This is my very first winter travelling in a van. But if I pick up little tips along the way that I think are worth sharing, then I'm going to share them with you. I wish somebody had told me about these things before I travelled. So you pick up these little tips as you go, you learn as you go. So the first time I went away, I didn't have a little LED torch. You'd think that would be obvious, but it's not something I'd thought of. But the first time I went away, in the winter, in the dark, I got the dog out in the dark, I couldn't see what was going on. And I had to use my mobile phone torch, which isn't really great. It's okay to illuminate where your feet are, but you really need a proper torch for that. And I've learnt this as I've gone along. Now, winterising your van, getting all the water out of the system, I've learned that from watching other people's YouTube channels. It's something that needs doing, and it's something I've learned from other YouTubers, and I'm grateful for that, and that's why I want to pass that information on to you. You may not have thought of it, but like I say, I'm not trying to teach anyone how to suck eggs. You may already know all these tips, but you might agree with them, you might disagree with them, you might have other tips. And if you've got other tips for travelling in the winter that I haven't thought of, because I'm sure there are many, then please leave a comment and let me know, because I'm learning from you. So please leave comments, and I'm learning all the time. Okay, so thanks for watching. I hope this has been helpful. Please subscribe and give me a like if you've enjoyed the content today, and I'll see you again in the next video. See you next time. Bye.